If you're looking back over your life from
Yes.
today,
Yes.
what are the recurring themes of both gifts and interests that just keep recurring that you've pursued?
Well, that's a wonderful question, and I probably you'd have to. I feel like a light switch. You better turn me off if I. However, I think as I look back, my life is divided into certain periods. My growing up, I was in. I don't know if you know that I was in the war.
Yes.
We do, yeah.
And in combat in Europe. And was very lucky, knock wood,
Yeah.
that I was one of those who came back without a scratch, although dear friends of mine were not so lucky.
Mm-hmm.
In any event, even though I was still relatively young, I went in when I was 18 and I got out when I was about 21. I really thought about time, and time was a gift to me after an experience like that. And so I thought about really what I wanted to do in my life. I went to the business school. My mother kept saying, "What are you going to a business school for?" That's at that time, it didn't have cachet. You've got to go to law school.
Right.
I didn't want to go to
Trying to
law
go to
school.
a trade school.
But in any event, I had a marvelous experience at the business school, and after my MBA, I went to work for Levi Strauss. And my goals were simple. My life was really on two tracks. I wanted to be successful in business, to do something that I liked. I was a marketing kind of person, marketing and advertising. I was very good with words. And I eventually accomplished that. I wanted to be financially independent if I could, and I was very lucky and worked hard, and I finally got to that point. But there was another track all the time. As an aside, I loved the arts, in particular theater, and I became very involved with that. And so that was always, I always kind of kept an interest there. I went on, and those two tracks became very characteristic. They were my life, and I eventually married and had a family. My first marriage was not a happy one. You learn from all of that, and then but I had a glorious kid out of that, a son. And then I met Lois after I was divorced, and Lois she was the love of my life, and so I've been very, very happy ever since. And so when you have that kind of grounding, it gives you a lot of energy, much more energy and openness in fulfilling your life goals. So I continued on in business until my retirement, and then did other things.
How would you describe your mission or purpose?
Well, it's different now than it was when I was young.
Yeah.
Mission, and I used to say that to my clients. A mission statement should be looked at every once in a while, but generally it's pretty good for several years, for a long time. John Kennedy gave this country the ultimate mission statement when he said, "We will place a man on the moon in 10 years." 10 years, and we did it.
Yeah.
So I think that everyone should look at himself and try to have that kind of a purpose. So if you're asking me what my mission, are you asking me what my mission is now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, I've got to tell you, I've written my own obituary. I have. I think it's a pretty good, as people get older, it's not a bad idea. Lois threw up her hands because the last line says he left 335 grandchildren. However, my mission is to try to live in the moment of every day And there was there was a poem. I think I
I think you shared it.
Shared.
read, which I originally gave in your seminar, and it was sent to me by a friend of mine in Delhi, in New Delhi, Vikram Roy, many years ago. But it's something I try to live by, and it expresses my philosophy. And
Would you be so kind as to share it
yes,
with
well,
us?
thank you. I'm going to keep. I know it by heart, but just in case I falter, it was written by a Sanskrit sage in about 400 A.D. But the words have a special meaning to me, and it goes like this. Look well to this day, for it is life, the very best of life. In its brief course lie all the truths and realities of existence, the joy of growth, the splendor of action, the glory of creation. For yesterday is but a memory, and tomorrow only a vision. But this day, if well lived, makes every yesterday a memory of happiness and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. So when you're 84 years old, as I am, and you want to feel that you have a purpose, you look well to this day, to each day. And that expresses where I am today, I think. So.
And that's how we experience you as well.
Well, thank you.
So completely present
Thank
and
you.
generous with yourself in the moment.
Thank you.
And yet, as you just said, there is a dimension to time, of course. There is the day today, but there is tomorrow,
Yep.
hopefully,
Yep.
for all of us.
Yep.
So at this point, 84 years young, and not looking out 50 years into the future, but certainly looking at whatever that dimension is for you, what type of a vision do you have for the future?
For
yourself and your
for
life.
myself, well, my future, I hope, will be celestial. You never know, but rather than elsewhere.
Right.
However, when I look ahead, I look through my family, to those who come after, and I hope for them that they will live lives as good, lives that are free, and that they feel themselves as part of having a responsibility for our country. I feel very strongly about that, about our country. And I think my vision is that there will be peace, generally speaking, although there has never been an unextended peace.
Yes.
But that's what I hope will be. And so I think that all the things that I do in my life, I hope have helped for me, not just on a personal level, but and it sounds such a cliche to say this, but I really feel this, but for our country as well, our country and the world.
You have a very active and complex post-professional life. You have many areas of
I do.
interest. You belong to a number of organizations, like the one you just
I do.
alluded to. How did you compose that? What was your approach to braiding together
Sure.
and pursuing your post-professional life?
Well, for me, the key was to think about what I wanted to do after I retired, long before I retired, and to begin to develop those interests and projects that would help me seamlessly, if possible, to make that kind of a transition. And I think I was very lucky I was able to accomplish that. So that my interest in the theater was well served. I began to help the Magic Theater in San Francisco years ago. That's a fine regional theater, produces, so it's been around for 40 plus years. Sam Shepard and a lot of other people got their starts there. And I analyze plays for production there. And there's another organization now called, in the same field, called the San Francisco Playhouse. And it is superb, a little 100-seat theater, the second floor of an old building in downtown on Sutter Street. And oh my Lord, the productions they turn out. A man named Bill English, who is a genius in the theater. He's an actor, he's a producer, he's a director, he's also a carpenter, he builds sets. And his wife, Susie Damilano, who is a fine actor. And they put on wonderful, wonderful, wonderful plays. There's no finer theater around than that. So I do that. I've done a lot for Stanford. I serve Stanford in every way I can. Stanford ACT has been a particular interest of mine. That's the alumni consulting team,
right.
Where we do management studies of worthy nonprofits, primarily throughout Northern California, and we use graduate MBAs, many of them running their own businesses, many of them are doing all kinds of other things out in the world, who come back and join our teams. And I've done many projects. I've done at least 10 projects for them over the years. So and I began to do that before I retired. And I also am I'm now the chair of a very small fund, which that's more a for-profit thing, called Marketocracy Incorporated. But at the present time, that fund, along with many others, is being buffeted by the financial fates. We don't know where it's going to go. So I have a lot of different interests. I try to structure my life and my project so that I'm dealing a lot with younger people, with young people. And I do that because young people, as any parent knows, they kind of keep you on edge.
Yes.
And they really do. They shake you up. If you have any tendency toward smugness or inertia, you're around young people, you're quickly shaken out of that. Yeah. And I love that idea of change, and what I call a healthy disrespect they have, when they challenge you. And so almost all of my projects are with people who are a good deal young. Well, everybody's younger than I am at this point. But I mean really young people, and I just love it. I enjoy that a lot. So.
Just to do all the things that you do takes a tremendous amount of energy. So what's your secret? You shared with us in the past that moderation in all things, but how do you keep yourself
Ralph
physically?
Waldo Emerson and I,
Yes.
Yeah.
How do you keep yourself physically up to the task?
Well, it's really, I hope it's not a secret. I hope it's the kind of thing that everybody knows about and ought to do. I had a physical exam the other day, and my doctor said, Are you still working out? I said, yes, I do. And he said, I ought to do that. You're a doctor.
Right.
Physician, heal thyself.
Heal thyself.
Anyway, I do. I have a workout program every day, 5 days a week. And part of that is an aerobics program to keep my heart beat up there, you know. I wear a strap around my chest and a little watch that tells me how. I meditate. I do TM, Transcendental Meditation, every day, usually late in the afternoon. If I am busy and my energy is drained and I come home and Lois says, say, we're going out tonight, there's this to do or that to do, and I go into my meditation. I wish more people would do it. It's like a 2-week vacation. I mean, when you go, it's sort of, TM is sort of like self-hypnosis.
Right.
And you come out of that energized, and I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
So I really recommend that. So it's It's physical, it's mental. I'm very careful about keeping my weight down, and I think those are the sources of energy. And I guess you have to be lucky with genes too. I suppose you've got.
How else are you expanding your world? What other ways are you larger than life? Because you are larger than life to me.
Well, thank you. Well, I try to satisfy an active mind in every way possible. As I said, I'm involved in. I act out my interests. I read a great deal. I try to meet with people who energize me intellectually, and sometimes those are not people necessarily who I really should make this point, who have a lot of college degrees. They can be, in terms of the world, quite humble. There's one of my dearest friends who is now 91 or 2, is in the Rodeo Hall of Fame, the Cowboy Hall of Fame.
Isn't that great?
During my time at Levi Strauss, I dealt a great deal with cowboys. I rode horses a lot. I was horse crazy, and I did all that. And so I have a lot of those friends from the rodeo arena who are still my friends. But there's this one man who is as sharp and as energizing as it's possible to be, and yet in terms of the world, one might say, well, he doesn't have a PhD, and he didn't run a big company, but he's one of the people I look to who really helps me. So I would recommend that to any and all. Lois says I shouldn't preach, but that's one of the things that I would urge people to do, to keep an open mind about seeing people for what they can give, regardless of what they seem to be. It's one of the things I like about Warren Buffett. So, yeah.
Authentic and diverse relationships is part of your world picture.
Absolutely.
And
sure.
You talked with us when we had the workshop about models, about you said at one point, looking forward, if we look forward from right now, all we do is transplant ourselves without really thinking about what might it be like at 70, at 80, at 90. Who are your models?
Who are my other people? Who are my models? Well, I have some heroes. You want to hear about my heroes?
I want to hear about your heroes.
Okay. A couple of my heroes are dead, but they live with me. My greatest hero, who's probably had more of an influence on my life than anything, is Winston Churchill. And I am a Winston Churchill buff. I collect Winston Churchill things. Even one of our young MBAs here gave me a couple of his novels several years ago. Churchill was not a novelist. He didn't do everything well, but he saved our world, and his message of purpose, of freedom, and of defiance in the face of evil are lessons that I would say have certainly helped to shape my own life. Without Churchill, none of us would be sitting right here at this point. Right. We wouldn't. And I, being Jewish, might long since have been a used-up cake of soap.
Right.
So Churchill saved us all. Young people today don't think of him that way. So he's certainly one of my very, 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 very great heroes.
Well, you mentioned a moment ago. You mentioned Warren Buffett.
Yes.
I'll use that as a segue.
Yes.
Into asking you, because these are, of course, very challenging financial times.
Yeah.
Economic times for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
And people who maybe as recently as a year or two ago felt that they were secure financially and were thus able to contemplate a post-professional life, and they transitioned. Of course, these are the people that we will be working with in our workshop. Game's changed a little bit in the last 12 months.
Sure has. For all of us, you
yeah,
bet.
for all of us, absolutely.
Right.
But are there any enduring principles, any insights
there
that
are.
you can share with
Yeah.
us about the
Yeah.
financial aspect of managing through this last third of life?
Yeah, I try to observe as much as I can. There are two rules that I have. One is never bet the ranch. Never be involved in anything where you're going to lose everything. I would say you can kind of maybe soften that a bit if you're very young, because when you're young, you know, you can take more chances, more risk. I'm talking financially.
Yes.
But as you grow older, I would say in terms of yourself and your loved ones, you want to try to achieve a certain security, if that's possible, in a very insecure world. I would say never bet the ranch. And the other is, if you make a windfall, if you do something which gives you a profit, take some off the top and put it away before you use. Don't use everything. I think you once asked me something like, how much is
Enough.
what's enough?
How much
How
is
much is
enough?
enough?
How much is
And enough is never everything. There are some people who operate to whom nothing is enough. I mean, they want it all.
I want more.
And everything has a downside and an upside. It's impossible, you know.
Yeah.
You can't do it. So that line where enough becomes too much is a very individual judgment we all have to make. And I think as you get older, that line shifts somewhat. You tend to protect yourself and your loved ones a bit more than you ordinarily might, you know. But you talked about vision before, and I would say, you know, our country has come out of worse things.
Yes.
This may seem so awful right now, but believe me, 1929,
You've seen it.
1930s were really awful, when you had a quarter of the workforce out of work. My own parents, my father lost all his money in the 30s, and suddenly we moved from pretty fancy digs. I'll never forget, I was a little boy, from pretty fancy digs to a little teeny apartment. He lost all his money. We had to start all over again. My parents had a pull-down bed, and my brother and I, my older brother and I, had two little beds in a little room, sort of, but my folks never lost it. They were great. And they came back never to where he was. So, you know, you have to try to maintain a sense of balance. What we're going through now is scary. We lived profligately. We forgot a couple of rules, and we're paying for that. And we have and I'm not talking politically necessarily, but we have a young president now who represents hope and youth, and I don't care whether you're Republican or Democratic or anything. He has that. We all want him to succeed, and we will. We'll come through this. But you know, right now, I think the worst thing we can do is to think that the sky is falling and we're never going to. But that's ridiculous. Our country is too strong and powerful and all of that. So we'll be fine.
It's a great message of hope that we all need to hear more of.
Yeah.
Tempered and experienced resilience is what you're sharing.
Right.
So at this stage of your life, I would imagine you've given that some thought, and
I have.
And would you share with us some of your ideas on the legacy that you would like to leave?
Other than the 330 grandchildren.
Yes, besides the grandchildren.
Well, I do believe, I hope that people, well, I have to tell you what I feel, what I've tried to impart to my own family. I think that each of us within himself or herself has to figure out what your core is. And by that I mean that which is inviolable, which you don't let anybody tamper with. You don't let circumstances or people tamper with. It's inside of you. So that whether you're going into a business deal or you're facing a terribly rough time financially or personally or whatever, that you preserve that core. And I hope that for those of my own family and those that I love and have had some influence on, I hope that if there's one lesson they've learned, it is to figure out what that core is, and it makes you strong. If you know what you are, what that one inviolable part of you is inside, that you will protect and defend and nurture to the end, you've got it all. And I hope that's the one lesson I'd love to have left with the people I influence.